What do these lenses and cameras have in common? Well, yes, they are all from Fujifilm, but they also share one common trait, and maybe if you take a hard look at all their wear and tear, you might see where I'm going with this, and it's the fact that they are all but used. Hey everyone, Robin here. I hope you're all well and healthy. What I want to talk about today is that when it comes to technologies, whether they are phones, computers, cameras, we are always told, out with the old, in with the new, get the latest and greatest. But what if we don't? My very first camera was actually bought used, Olympus EPL2, bought $250 on eBay, then bought its bigger brother, the Olympus EP3, that I kept for quite a while, 3 to 4 years. The camera that probably taught me the most in photography, which is this one's older brother, the very first Fujifilm X100. Once again, bought on eBay. I believe it was $350 at the time. Bought it when I was in Texas. 12 megapixel camera, very slow, very soft when shot wide open, but still was able to allow me to make a bigger print out of my pictures, including this one. But more generally, a lot of my gear has been bought used. All of this is the 16 to 55 f2.8, which is on this camera, bought used as well. My drone, the Parrot Anafi, bought used too. And the only couple of instances when I didn't buy a used camera or lens are this camera, the Fujifilm X-E3, and the Samyang 12mm. And overall, I've never had any problem with any of these. I always trusted people when I bought them online. Most of the time, I tried to be able to either talk to the sellers or meet them when I buy them on a French website called Le Bon Coin, which is the equivalent to the American Craigslist or the British Gumtree. That was the case for these two, and these are actually the ones I want to talk about today. And I want to show you how you don't need the new Fujifilm X-E4 to be able to shoot street photography. The X-E4, which was just released, is, if I remember well, about $800 or euros, and it comes with nothing, just the camera, no lens. But these two were bought for separately, but for a grand total of 600 euros. And so you have a great lens, one of my favorites. Use it for portraits, for gig concerts, for street photography as well. And so that's what I want to show you today, how you can use these two to have a great result for street or documentary photography. So just follow me in this POV shot, and here we go. For those of you who know Paris, we are going to start today at the Bastille, walk across the Marais down Rue de Rivoli, and then we're going to walk across the Seine through the Latin Quarter, and we are going to finish up at the Jardin de Luxembourg. Bastille is a neighborhood where I hung out a lot when I was in college. It used to be a roundabout where there were a lot of cars and it was quite messy, but they turned it into a much more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, as you can see. Something I really like about the X-E3 is that it's so tactile. There are so many buttons and dials. There's one dial in the back, one in the front, which is not the case on the X-E4. And I use the one on the back for shutter speed and the one in the front for ISO. Having so many buttons and dials on such a small body may not necessarily sound like a practical thing, but in my experience it's always much better than having to dive into obscure menus. Plus, the X-E3 being a mirrorless instead of a DSLR, you always get to see directly what you do on screen and on the EVF. The technique you just saw and that you're going to see again in a second, I was asked quite a bit about in a previous video. Basically, the way I do it is that I lower my shutter speed to about between 1/10 of a second and 1/30th of a second. If you want to avoid having too bright of a photo, is that you have to reduce the aperture, so I usually have it around f11. And the main thing is that you have to follow your subject and move your camera at the same speed as the subject is moving. So I'm going to show you again in a second. Another useful point about the X-E3, which of course is not unique to that camera, is that it's an interchangeable lens system as opposed to the X100 series, which means that depending on the lens you choose, it can become a very pocketable camera. For instance, that would be the case with the 27mm pancake lens, or even the one I'm using right now, the 35mm, if you're taking the lens hood off. The fact that this is a used camera means also that you can either save money on lenses and buy one more, or on the other hand, decide to save even more cash. I believe that if you buy this camera used along with the original 27mm, you will probably get it for half price compared to the X-E4 and the WR Mark II version of the 27mm, which has the exact same optical qualities as the old one. On a totally unrelated note, you may have noticed how quiet the streets of Paris are in this video, and it's mostly due to the fact that we are in the midst of a pandemic and that there are virtually no tourists around. Most cafes, bars, restaurants are closed, except when, just like with this one, they are selling food and drinks to go. The Latin Quarter in Paris is a neighborhood which is usually very busy, very lively, filled with tourists, Parisians as well, walking around. And right now it's very quiet, and it's kind of hard to do street photography there while there are so few people around, except when sometimes, just like here in this case, you see people playing chess instead of working, which makes for a nice photography. What you'll see in front of this theater is a sign that says room 123 and then reopening ? March ? Theaters have been closed for quite a while now, and they still haven't reopened. Overall, the 24 megapixels of the X-E3 are more than enough if you want to publish your photos on the internet, be it on Instagram or any other website. And even if you want to print your photos, you don't need the X-E4 and its 2 additional megapixels. That clearly won't make a difference. Overall, as far as stills and user experience are concerned, the X-E3 is a great camera. It's light, discreet, and its buttons and dial make it a fun camera to shoot with, a camera that you want to pick up and walk around with in the streets of Paris. However, no camera is perfect, and there are things about the X-E3 that might make you want to pick up the X-E4 instead, or even another camera altogether. Comparing the body of the X-E3 and that of the X-E4, there's one major difference that comes to mind, and that is the fact that on the X-E4 there is a flip-up screen while the one on the X-E3 is fixed. And having used the X-T3 as my main camera for about 3 years now, it is a feature that I really like using and that clearly misses on the X-E3. Another issue with the X-E3 is video. Although it does record in 4K, you can only shoot 30 images per second in that resolution, and you can only shoot for 10 minutes straight before you have to shoot another clip. To be fair, the X-E4 only does marginally better in that field. If it can shoot for 30 minutes straight in 4K and in 200 megabits per second, neither of them shoot in H.265. Which means that if you're interested in that type of stuff, you might want to look for the X-T3, the X-T4, or the XS10 instead. My final gripe with the X-E3 is button placement. While on the X-E4 some key buttons are missing, such as the ability to choose between single, continuous or manual focus, or even the front dial, the X-E3 on the contrary has sometimes buttons that are less than ideally located. There were times when I accidentally pressed some buttons, including the quick menu button, which is located on the thumb rest, as well as the function button, which is located right next to the shutter button, and sometimes it just made me miss some shots. No camera is perfect, and while this camera is great for some people, it might not be as much for others. And let's take a look maybe first at who it's not for. It might not be for people who are into video. It might do an okay job at shooting videos, but it's not that great. Also, it's not great if you really care about having a tilt-up screen. This one is fixed, and you might have more problems if you want to shoot very low on the ground. And finally, it's not great if you want a new camera, if you care about not having any scratches on the body, on the screen. This one is used, and I don't really care about my camera being used as long as it shoots the photos that I wanted to shoot or the videos I wanted to shoot if it can shoot video. On the other hand, it's great for other people. First of all, it's great if you're starting photography and you're not sure you're gonna like it. Buy a used camera. It's cheaper, you get probably a better lens than you would get if you are buying it brand new. And so this camera is actually great if you want to start caring about your photography, because you will see exactly what does what: aperture, shutter speed, ISO. It's a very user-friendly camera. It's a very fun to shoot with. It's a camera you want to pick. So it's also great if you want to have it as a secondary daily camera if you're a bit more advanced. Finally, it's great for photography. It's very inconspicuous. It looks like a vintage camera, and people don't look at you as much with this one as they would, for instance, with the X-E3 or a big Canon, Nikon, Sony camera. And maybe one last thing, it's great if you care about the environment. I try to buy as many used cameras and lenses as I can, because you don't create more waste. It's just an old camera, you give it a new life, and it gives meaning to you as much as it is meaningful for the environment. So try to buy used, or look at even used gear online. Thanks for watching. We've just reached over 100 followers recently, so thanks a lot to all of you who follow me. It really means a lot, and I hope you will enjoy the following videos just as much as you've enjoyed the previous ones. See you soon.